Hey guys, welcome back to another Warframe video, and today I want to cover a topic that was recommended to me a very long time ago, but I'm only now just getting around to it. What the person asked me was, do videos on every single Warframe, like the lore behind each Warframe, right? So I'm gonna start off with my very favorite Warframe, which you probably didn't guess it, but it is Garuda. She is absolutely my favorite Warframe. I love vampire stuff. I love the sadisticness. I love the blood. This is sounding... Don't judge me. So at first glance, you may be thinking, why did they name her Garuda at all? Like, they could have called her something like, you know, something to do with Vlad the Impaler, or Nosferatu, or Elizabeth Bathory, or even like Nina Tepish, or any you could have named her Camilla. Right, because she's very heavily inspired by vampires, it seems, right? Like, there's blood, everything. You even have a mirror. Vampires, mirrors, come on. You have a blood altar. You have, like, being staked, like, you know, Vlad used to do. This is all seeming very vampiric. And you even have, like, the helmet, Bathory, which is obviously inspired by Elizabeth Bathory. And if you don't know who that is, she was well, the lore of her compared to the reality of her is going to be a little bit disappointing, but I'm gonna talk about it really quick. So the lore about her is something along the lines like she had some kind of disease. They made her skin pigmentation light and low immunity to sunlight, right? We all know what that is. I just can't remember the name of it right now, so let my mind. But once upon a time, there was a snake. I think it came in her garden or something like that, and she killed it with the heel of her shoe. Like, she took off her shoe and cracked the skull in, and the blood splatter got on her hand, and because there's iron in the blood and it was touching her skin was absorbing it, it gave her skin complexion. And then from then on, she's like, oh, blood would give me color, it would make me more beautiful. This is the lore, not reality. So then what happened is she eventually started to kill people, young women. She used to kill young women servants, and a school she used to own for like teaching women how to be a woman, like when they're coming of age, and those old-timey stuff where you had requirements of how to act or whatever. Anyway, the point is she started to kill them and drain their blood and then bathe in their blood to give herself complexion and to be healthier. That's the myth. That didn't actually really happen by accounts. And you may be like, how do I know what the accounts are? Because there were survivors and there was a lot of people involved with this, and it was investigated to great extent where people were actually sentenced, and there was a lot of people wrote forward giving evidence and accounts, and it was a whole big thing. You know, you could go research it. It's available. But the reality of the matter is a bit different. So it was like she was exposed to cruelty from a young age, so much so that she used to enjoy and laugh, take pleasure in watching, you know, people being sentenced or, you know, tortured or executed or any cruelty. She used to find pleasure in it. That's how warped her mind got. She got very sadistic. So when she got in the position of power to actually have people under her, people serving her, she took advantage of this. And any slip up that people would make, specifically young women, she would completely abuse them and torture them. Not just torture them like you maybe think it's just like, oh, whip them or whatever. No, it was to a sadistic, psychological torture that ended in a lot of their deaths. In fact, not many people got away with her fully intact, like without getting their face bitten off or fingers chopped off or being stabbed. It was unlikely you would encounter her and, you know, survive fully intact as you are. It was highly unlikely. However, the whole bathing of the blood thing didn't occur, not by the accounts of the survivors and witnesses and the people involved in helping her. That never came up. That's something added to the story later to give it more, you know, je ne sais quoi. However, even though I ruined this whole vampiric image of her for you, I will put new data in there for you that makes her seem vampiric again. Because when she finally died, like one day she just went to sleep. She wasn't sentenced or anything like that. She got away with it because of money and her position and stuff like that. But she fell asleep one day, and you know, she never woke up. She just died in her sleep, supposedly, right? So they buried her in the local cemetery, but there was a whole outcry because she's a fucking serial killer, right? Responsible for a lot of the deaths of the young women in the villages and stuff like that. So they didn't want her buried there. So what they did is they exhumed the body and they put it in the family crypt, right? The Warframe family crypt. Cool. So there she remained until one day in, like, I believe it was 1995, where they were like looking in there for some reason, you know, maybe just for historical reasons. But the whole point is her body was not in the family crypt, and it was supposed to be there, but it wasn't in there. So where is she? She like fell asleep and looked dead. They buried her, they put her in the crypt, and then she's not actually where she's supposed to be. That seems kind of vampiric. What's the actual story? Where is her body today? I have no idea. But I just thought that seemed very vampiric, so I would put it out there. So moving on from that, you may be wondering, why is named Garuda at all, right? Like, if she's all tied to this blood and vampiric stuff, why give her this name? Like, it doesn't make sense, right? Or you may be thinking, because she was being made at the same time that they were making another vampire frame, that she was in the running for like which vampire gets chosen. And then they're like, you know, we like her, so let's also make her, but let's give her a different name that has nothing to do with vampires, and let's, you know, just make it happen, right? That's what you may be thinking, and it's a fair assessment to make. However, you would be surprised at how much they actually got right, either purposely or intentionally, when it comes to the mythology and the lore of the Garuda. So first, you may be thinking there's blood altars and you make sacrifices to Garuda. No, that's not how it works. Okay. Second, you may be thinking Garuda, you might have heard this from before, like maybe from Ancient Aliens, because, well, it's a fair assessment to make if you only knew this one piece of data but you don't have context, which is that Garuda was a mount for Vishnu. And you may think like magical bird human people, giant bird people don't exist, so what is this emulating? Well, bird usually emulates that this person or this being had the power of flight. They had the ability to go from the heavens, you know, to earth, to the heavens. And you know, heaven doesn't mean a magical place in the sky, it just means beyond the sky, you know, up, space, infinity, right? So that's usually what it means. You have the ability to go up and down there. So it seems like of a mana, right? So it seems like some magical flying vehicle. So yeah, you can make the speculation that this could have been some kind of flying device. It could be some kind of UFO. But it's not, because that's not all Garuda was. Garuda wasn't just a fucking ride. Garuda wasn't a taxi. Garuda was a being with story and detail and like thoughts and emotions and all kind of stuff, right? Like any one of us. In fact, more than us if you really think about it. Anyway, in Buddhism, Hinduism, Jainism, and a lot of other things where you could see cultural diffusion, Garuda is in there in one form or another. So what is Garuda exactly? Well, Garuda is the king of birds, and they have like mighty golden wings, like a giant wingspan, so big that it can block out the sun, and so powerful that it can cause hurricanes, so powerful that it can stop the spinning, the rotation of the earth, of the heavens, and of the hell. Garuda is so powerful. Not only did Garuda defeat armies of nagas, but Garuda also defeated the other gods. Garuda could destroy the heavens and the earth if Garuda chose to, or chooses to. However, lucky for, you know, everyone, Garuda is actually not bad. Garuda fights for injustice and stuff like that. Garuda is about virtue, hope, rebirth, justice, power, you know, intelligence. It is an intelligent warrior, like a tactician. However, Garuda is also merciless. You do not want to be Garuda's enemy, and you do not want to do something that Garuda sees as unjust, or you're gonna get sadistic wrath put upon you. Now it's starting to sound a little bit more like Warframe's Garuda, right? But there's a little bit more. You see, Garuda isn't only just a giant bird. Garuda can take different forms. One of Garuda's forms, or one of the depictions of Garuda, is like humanoid, with wings like attached to the arms, kind of like Garuda's claws are attached to her arm in that bat-like fashion. Garuda's talons are also like giant metal knives, very sharp, very lethal. Just some random notes here, just so you could better understand Garuda and mythology, lore, or religion, if that's your religion. Then it's Garuda's natural nemesis, their enemy, is the king of the snakes, the naga. Also, Garudas are one of the 8 beings that used to sit at Buddha's sermons. Garuda is also one of the 4 dignities. Dragon is of strength, the tiger is of confidence, the snow leopard or lion is of courage, and the garuda is of wisdom. So just to cover everything Garuda in this video, how are her moveset in comparison to lore, right? Because they're looking kind of vampiric from everyone's point of view, right? But does it match lore? It kind of does. It kind of does. So her passive, the more you do, the more damage you do, the more powerful you become, right? Garuda is extremely powerful. But in the stories from mythology, the gods used to realize how strong Garuda was, so they used to ask Garuda for favors, for tasks. However, doing these tasks made Garuda less powerful. So if you want to implement this into the game, it's kind of tricky, but it's like, if I was to do things, if I'm playing Garuda and I waste my time from doing what I want to do, which is killing everybody, right? If I waste my time to do something for someone else, like pick this up or hack this machine, literally by Garuda's own passive, my meter would be going down and I would become weaker, just like in the lore. Next up, her talons. I've already explained that they're like giant metal knives that are extremely sharp. We already know that, but for seeking talons, the ability, it is still correct to the lore, because Garuda is supposed to make storms, right? Like tornadoes and hurricanes and stuff like that. So having razor sharp items flying around a tornado that do damage to you is completely possible. They could have also done other things like a Naros' sandstorm, but that's already been done. They could have also done things like the tornadoes that Zephyr has, but that's already been done. So they try to give it its own unique, storm, which is understandable. So next is Blood Altar, and I'm gonna try not to waste a lot of time covering this, but there's a story that comes along with it, but I'm not gonna tell the story, I'm just gonna get to the points. Garuda had nectar of immortality at one point that Garuda was trading for something. I'm not gluing the story for you. But what happened was Garuda poured it seemingly onto the floor for the nagas could, drink it up, but it wasn't actually poured on the floor, and the nagas went to lick it up and they split their tongues on these razor sharp grass on the floor, and they would split their tongue. That's why their snakes' tongues are split, supposedly, right? That's half of it. But the other half of it, because you may be like, why is somebody impaled on this thing? If you're saying that's a blade of grass, why is somebody impaled on it? It could be another thing too, mixed with it, which is Garuda chose its form of substance to be the nagas. Remember I talked about the sadisticness of your wrath towards your enemy? Yeah, this is part of it. So impaling your enemy so you could consume them, completely Garuda. Which you can also say the same thing for Blood Mirror, because you lunge at somebody to try to consume their life essence, right? And you could even mix in vampire stuff with it, because what is the elixir of immortality? What is that nectar of life? You could say it is blood, right? Many religions say it's blood. So if they mix these two things together and say that the nectar of immortality is blood, then there you go. That's why everything has to do with blood. The mirror part, however, does confuse me a bit. If it's just purely Garuda, it has nothing to do with vampires, it's seeming sus, right? But let me try to reach out here and try to figure out why or how this would even make sense. Garuda is cunning and clever, that's for sure. Not like the Monkey King kind of trolling your enemies kind of clever, but more like Batman, where you always have a tool for the job. You're always prepared. You always know what to do. So being prepared for any situation and having a shield, possible. It's a bit of a stretch, it's a bit weird, and I think it's more likely that they try to mix vampiric stuff with Garuda stuff, and that's the reason. But it is possible that they just try to give something to show that Garuda is always prepared for any situation kind of thing. The ability that has the hardest correlations to make is probably bloodletting. However, you still could make some correlations there if you actually dig pretty deep and go way outside the box, but it's there. It's kind of like, if you want to go with the idea that the nectar of the gods, the nectar of immortality is actually blood, then you are sacrificing your blood, right, to do whatever you're trying to do. Garuda at one point in the stories was carrying the nectar of immortality in Garuda's mouth, trading it for something, right? So it did give it up. It did give up the immortality for something. So Garuda still got immortality anyway for, you know, its task, its performance, impress the gods. But yeah, that could be it, that you're sacrificing it to achieve whatever you're trying to do. But then you become immortal anyway through doing what you're doing, which if you play Garuda right, you basically are immortal, just like Garuda became in the stories. Oh, I forgot one more point, which is when you use bloodletting, you lose any status effects on you, right? Garuda was immune to the poisons of the naga. Just saying. So she's pretty much immortal and is sadistic towards her enemies and feeds off their life essence. It all is making perfect sense, but what I like especially about it is, even if you didn't know any of that context of lore and mythology and you just wanted to see her as vampiric, it still works, and that's what I love. I love that I could run around as a vampire in Warframe. Anyway, that's all I got for now, guys. If you guys like this video, I'll probably make more for the other Warframes, but that's it for now. So see you next time, and thanks for watching.